That's my face. Um, Hello, I am Nancy Sheed of Sheed Communications, and I am very, very, very excited to be here with Michelle Garside of Soul Camp Creative. She's a brand strategist and just an amazingly fun, fantastic, engaging, funny, witty person to be around. And we are here today to talk about brand strategy, brand breakthroughs, and make quote unquote doing branding, discovering your brand seem much more exciting and or at least interesting and less scary. So welcome, Michelle. I'm
Thank
so glad to have
you.
you here.
Oh my gosh, what an honor. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to chat today.
Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. So one of my very first questions, before we kind of dive into the other stuff is you and I met through, how did we meet? Carolyn Herforth. Was that right?
I think so.
And
My love. I
yeah,
love you so much. Yes.
her Uber connector. I'm going to start giving her points every time I mention her name
Yes.
in these videos. And she connected us because we both do a lot of work with authors, right? Like a lot of your clients are also authors. So that was kind of the common thread.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. And I was like, oh, she's very fun. I might want to work with her. So there was Michelle. So before we get to Soul Camp Creative, can you walk us through the backstory of how does one become a brand strategist? You're sitting in high school and that wasn't a job description back then, I'm sure.
No, when I was 6 years old, I didn't blow out the candles on my birthday cake wishing to be a brand strategist when I grew up. That is not what happened. But I am so grateful that it did happen. So for me, I always knew that I was a people person. I always knew that I was very comfortable talking to different people. So in college, I went to school in Washington, D.C. Everyone would always tell me, you should go into sales, you should go into marketing, you should go into advertising. And I had a bunch of varied internships all over the place in college, but I remember so succinctly, I looked up I knew I wanted to live in New York City, and I looked up the top 10 advertising firms in New York City back then in 2005, 2006.
Okay.
And Ogilvy was up there, one of the top ones, Ogilvy and Mather. And I remember I just blind emailed and I just said, hi, I'm Michelle. I'm like, this is why I would love a job. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm great at. Can you forward me to the appropriate person? And they did. It was my first interview. It was my first anything. And I got in the door at Ogilvy and Mather and started my career in brand development for big pharma. So that is my whole career before starting my own agency, was doing what do we want people in Latin America versus North America versus South America to think, feel, and do about this insulin when it's in phase 3 clinical trials, years and years prior to launch. What are we calling it? What is the messaging? What is the tagline? What is all of that? So I did that for years and years and years, and I loved it. I loved ideating and creating these huge blockbuster brands. And simultaneously to that, I just started my own spiritual wellness journey. And I was, just going to different workshops, going to different retreats, going to different events, and thinking to myself, oh my God, I wonder what it would be like if these authors, speakers, teachers, instructors were able to create the type of brands that I'm creating for Johnson & Johnson, or they create the type of brands that I'm creating for Merck or Novo Nordisk or, these Pfizer.
Right.
And that's really how the idea started. It also then, as so many of us experience, with an epic breakup from a boyfriend at the time. And I had this moment of like, who am I? Who do I want to be without this relationship? I'm back on my own. Like, what do I want to create? And in a very dramatic eat, pray, love fashion, the weekend he was moving out of our apartment, I went on a event, a weekend long retreat at Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York with Patricia Moreno, and discovered that I really wanted to get into the world of wellness and create a career that lit me up. And so came back from that retreat, and in very short succession, within I would think 8 months, I had quit my job. I had sold my New York City Upper West Side apartment. I had gone off to India for a month.
Truly eat, pray, love. Holy moly.
Oh, when I go, I go big,
Love it.
and then I came back and I started my first company, which was called I Am Creative. And it really was with the ideology and the ethos of, okay, how do I do what I was doing for Big Pharma, but to do it for the nutritionist, the author, the life coach, the functional doctor. And that's really where it started back in 2011. And now 10, 11 years later, almost 11 years later, that company has morphed into Soul Camp Creative. And we work with some of the best-selling authors in the country and creating really big blockbuster brands, similar to what I was doing to Pfizer, similar to what I was doing for Novo Nordisk, but for the author, for the speaker, for the instructor. So it's really incredible. We have a full agency now. We have a team of about 10 people that work with us, and it's a dream come true.
Okay, I love that journey. Well, so I didn't know that. So that answered that question of, so a lot of people branding, they think logos, they think it's for companies. So like this goes to my next question, right? Like, don't people need strategies, right? So I love how you were already seeing that. And it was probably before, right? The word personal branding was out, or it was just coming out, uh, walk me through sort of those first clients, because you and I've talked about this. Well, at least in my world, a lot of the nonfiction people, they want to be behind, they
Yeah.
want their content to do their content. It's less about them and more about their content. So talk me a little bit through your evolution with this sort of personal branding, or did you originally have to start selling people on this? Was it a new idea? What did that evolution look like as you took it to people?
Yeah, what that evolution looked like was I told my fitness instructor that I had went away on that retreat, Patricia Moreno. I said, I am starting my own agency. Can you hire me? And she was like, I cannot afford you. However, I will announce you in my classes. And she worked at Equinox, which was a New York City gym. And so at the very beginning, she would stand up and say, and I was working for her for free, kind of in exchange
Right.
for doing this. And she would say, Michelle started an agency for people like us, for the fitness instructors, for the dreamers, for the doers. And I remember at the very, very beginning, I would sit with someone for an hour at Panera Bread in Union Square. And I would go through their website and just like call out, like, you should have an opt-in, you should have your social media
Right.
here, you should have this, like very basic stuff.
Right. The audit, so to speak, right?
And then at the end of that hour, I would be like, would you have paid me for that? And how much would you have paid me for that? And that's how it started. Like, I will never,
Love
one of
it.
my first, like these random nutritionists, like at Panera Bread in Union Square, and then them being like $100, $200. I was like, all right, do I charge $100 an hour, $200 an hour? I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
But slowly, I built confidence, and slowly, I built my own brand equity and started showing up everywhere. And then, I became the brand strategist for Gabby Bernstein, for Marianne Williamson, for Clary Cole, and they all had their own audiences. So with each
Yeah.
person, it grew and grew and grew.
Nice. And walk me through. So let's say Gabby Bernstein comes to you. Does she know she needs a brand breakthrough, or does she come to you? I'm just curious about the words people use. Does she come to you and say, I need help with marketing? And do you have to do a bit of an educational process to say, well, before we can talk about marketing, what's the brand? What does that look like?
Yeah. So with Gabby, she already had a brand, but she was creating something called Spirit Junkie Masterclass, which was like her idea for like school, basically,
Right.
for her followers. So really creating the vernacular, the vocabulary, the why, the messaging there. That's really how that started. And also like just the framework and structure. Back when I had first started, I literally did not know what I was doing, but I was doing events for people in this space. I was like,
Okay.
pulling it together. So helping, kind of oversee the strategic production as well of the live events. So that's how that started for Marianne. It was when she was running for Congress a few years
Okay.
ago. Yeah, it was that brand. Terry Cole, we created a whole brand, for her personal brand during a phase of her career. Um, but yeah, most people who come now, and again, that was like back at the beginning. That was back at like 2011, 2012.
Right.
So it's a whole different ball game now because people know, I can't just say I'm a life coach and stand out. There are 1,000 life coaches in the room. I can't just say, I'm a meditation teacher. There is one of a million. Like, it's not like how it used to be where people would be like, what do you mean you're
A
spiritual?
life coach. I've never met a life coach.
It's just so important, especially for the authors. I mean, what you said before, the majority of our clients come from Simon and Schuster, Random House, Penguin. Like, the majority of our clients, they've gotten their next book deal, and like they need to create a bigger brand to hold not just this book, but the next 5 books, right? So many of my authors come and they're like, my book is called Green Juice for Life. Like, my brand is all about green juice. And I'm like, all right, are you sure that in 6 years from now, you're still just going to want to be talking about green juice? No? Okay, then we need to create a bigger container. What's underneath the green juice? What is the bigger why of the green juice, right? Green juice just being an example.
100% right.
Yeah, but like really crafting, I call it a container, a vehicle to hold your message, not just your message from today, but your message for the next few years. That when people see you on stage or pick up your book or see you, your business card or your website or listen to your podcast, they
Right.
immediately have a feeling about you, no matter what you're talking about, right? They immediately have this feeling of, oh, this is Molly Carmel. She's fiercely devoted to my freedom. If she's talking about eating disorders, or if she's talking about, boundaries in relationships, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But at the root, no matter what she's talking about, it's always coming back to, she is my fierce, devoted,
Right.
junkyard dog rooting for me, my best friend, whatever that is for you. So the necessity of creating a brand where people understand immediately, we all have such short attention spans. Oh, this is Michelle. She's the XYZ for the XYZ. This is the role that she will play from a psychological perspective in my life. This
Got
is
it.
the identity component that, where she fits for me. So that no matter what you come out with, another book, another podcast, another program, another course, you don't need to completely sell people every time. They're already sold into you as the brand.
I love that. And so that's a nice segue into so how do people know? I mean, you and I would say they have a book launch, right? Like, but let's say they're pro book launch because again, or they're pre, sorry, not pro, they're pro, but pre, because we know they're hearing that if they haven't built a platform, that's going to be tricky to get a traditional book deal, right? So, and maybe there's not even a book related, but how do people know that they're ready to work with you or they need help with their brand, right? They might not have one or whatever. Like, what are the checkpoints you would say to them they need to go through, or do you go through before you decide to work with somebody?
Yeah. I mean, I would say the number one reason people come into my door is they're ready to go from one to one to one to many, right? Like they are ready to get, I say to my psychotherapist clients, off the couch and into the world. Stop just seeing one person after another, if you're a doctor, if you're a psychologist, if you're a coach, and really begin to build a bigger impact. And that bigger impact can be through a book. It doesn't necessarily
Right.
have to be through a book. It could also be through podcasts. It could also be through group programs, through a membership. There are many different ways, but regardless, like, they're ready to go bigger.
Okay.
So that's number one. The second is, my brand no longer fits. I've
Mm.
I've grown, I created a whole brand based on, motherhood and parenthood. And now, it's years later and I want to talk about something else, right? Like, or I've gone through a spiritual journey and I really feel called to speak about God, right? Like, whatever it is, they're ready for something different. They're ready for a different container to hold their message.
Got it. Oh, that's really helpful filter. I mean, it makes total sense, but I think a lot of people are like, I need help with marketing. And you're like, you're thinking, this is so much more than marketing,
Yeah.
but you sometimes have to educate them, right? Like, I think there's part of our job is that educating.
And I always say, we are not digital marketing firm. We are not, I can shoot you over to someone who does Facebook ads and amazing digital marketing, but we are the step before that. We are the foundational component that does not change, which is who you are, who you're for, why that matters.
Okay, so if you're just joining us, I'm Nancy Sheed of Sheed Communications. I have the wonderful, amazing, zestful, brilliant, ever
Oh,
so wise and sage Michelle Garside of Soul Camp Creative. She's a brand strategist. And now I want to dive into your amazing process of literally like pulling a brand out of someone. And I say that as somebody who is fortunate to work with you. Nobody has yet seen your brilliance in action. We haven't gotten there, but your email comes zinging through and it's like, anybody interested in a brand breakthrough? And your process was so different, and the deliverable was great. So that's all I'm going to say, Michelle, walk us through what a brand breakthrough is and kind of who it's for and how it works, because it's such a clever, useful, as you said, foundation and tool.
yeah. So in the brand breakthrough, we create the foundation of the brand. So everything that I just said before, who you are, who you're for, what we're calling you, what your tagline is, what your hashtag is, what your homepage copy, how this brand speaks and feels, the personality of this brand, the messages that this brand uses, what the type of things that you can post on social media, your website outline, what we're calling your speaking topics, just all of that foundational upfront work of like, this is who you are. And then that will inform any designer that is making a logo for you, or any photographer who's doing a photo shoot for you, or any social media, activator who's doing posts for you on social. It's the blueprint, it's the footprint, it's the foundation of who you are. It happens in a 2-hour session. It used to be 3 hours. Before that, it was 4 hours. But over the last 11 years, I got it down to 2 hours. And when I was in corporate, this would take a year. Like truly, like it would just take so long. And I always
so many people involved, so many
other
like,
people.
oh
But
my God.
yeah, it's a magical process. It's 2 hours. And basically, what I do is I really just guide you through a process in our talk, where I'm able to really hear how you talk about what you do in a different way, and put it together in a way that you might not be able to on your own. And then you receive that full output. It's about 6 or 7 page, Word document, blueprint, within a few days, within 48 hours. And then either you can go and bring that to life on your own and implement that in a Squarespace site. You could have our agency do that for you, but it's the starting point. It's the step one. It's the foundation.
And that's so beautifully put. But I think what's also important, Michelle, is what it's not, right? Like, it isn't a logo design. You're not walking away with, what everybody sort of also, I think, gets confused in terms of branding. You're not walking away with fonts, and you're not walking away with colors. And I don't mean to highlight what you're not getting,
Yeah.
because the work that you do is so key to define all of those other pieces. But you also don't have to go do that to still be able to use the foundation that you create, right? Like you and I talked about, what if you just want to have a new lead gen piece or call to action on your website, right? And you've given those tools. Or what if you're working just on your bio across all of your profiles?
Yeah.
You've given that, right? Like, it's just such a key piece to which everything else can launch.
To everything. And listen, I have a branding agency, right? So we have a team of designers to create beautiful logos, but I would never want my team to create a beautiful logo without the strategy. Like, that will be the first question that they ask me is, who is she? Who is she for? What does she stand for? What's her platform? What's the bigger why? What is the tone of the brand? What is the feel of the brand? What do we want her audience to feel? That informs everything. So people think, when they think of branding, they think like, I really need a rock star logo. And then I ask them like, okay, so tell me about this logo. Why this color? Why this font? Why this? Why this? And because I like it. But everything matters, right? Like,
Yeah.
the words that we use, the colors that we use, the photography style that we use, the imagery that we use, it all psychologically impacts our consumer. So there needs to, from my perspective, there needs to be strategy behind that. Otherwise, you're just another beautiful logo. You're just another beautiful website, and you're not going to get the people that you need. You're not going to get the audience that you want. You're not going to get the book deal that you're desiring without a solid foundation in place.
Right. And also, I think people just go in and do one part, right? And then, and I've had this experience because I've learned the hard way why you need a brand is you're just constantly making it up as you go along. And then it ends up being completely inconsistent, or it doesn't resonate, or you started with this book and then this book is slightly different. And to your point, you miss the umbrella under which this, either the foundation or the umbrella, right?
Yeah.
That brings it all together. So, somewhere in one of your bios, I saw you write, and I don't know where I picked this up. You said names, taglines, and brand vocabularies are your personal jam. For those people who aren't familiar, I mean, we're gonna take a little bit of a process. Like, what does that look like to somebody you might work with on a brand breakthrough, right? Like, how are those different? Somebody might say those all sound the same to me.
Yeah. So your tagline, right, is like as soon as someone sees you on stage, it's the way that you introduce yourself. So like I just created a brand, Unexpected Truth, and she'll, introduce herself. Hi, I'm Jessica Jane of Unexpected Truth, right? Like, so that's the brand, right? And then from a messaging standpoint, I'm here to shed light in the shadows and bring forward the truth in every area, right? Like that's more messaging, right? Messaging also from a brand of Unexpected Truth is like, the different plays on the words around expected and unexpected, expect and unexpecting. Same as like different things like the truth is, let's get to like just that's messaging, right? So, and everything is different. I have a client who I just spoke to. Her name is Brooke. Brooke, if you're watching, hi. Who's very like, honey, I'm going to tell you like it is. Her messaging is very, very different than someone who's much more like, it's time to cultivate awareness, right? Like those are two
Right.
very different, and it gives you a very different feeling of the brand. That's messaging. And vernacular is more like the words you use. So I have a client, her brand is all about like the electricity of, she's a spark plug, fire plug. And so the vernacular that we use is all about catalyst, plug in, light the fire, the crackle, it's like words that allude to this feeling of sparking something.
I love it. And I think, again, for those, when we're working with our authors or our experts who are so into their content, right, and that expertise, that brand vocabulary, when you bring it in, makes it much easier to talk about themselves in what feels like an authentic way versus a schlocky, salesy, do you know what I mean? Like
Unless
an uncomfortable way. So I think also that's one of the values of that brand work is it gives people a comfortable and aligned and authentic space in which it's much easier for them to operate from.
absolutely. And, all the brands that we create are completely authentic and aligned to who you are. The worst feeling I'll never forget I once had a client who, we had a console call, and we were talking on video, and she was like so awesome, in your face, like dropping F-bombs. Like I get to she was a coach like from New York City, from like the Bronx, and was just like, so like, I get to the heart of the matter. Like I pull it out of them. Like I love them so fierce. And I was like, wow, like I'd hire you as my coach. Like that's the type of coach I'd want. She's like, I just don't know. Like, I'm not getting any clients. I'm not filling my programs. And I go to her website. Well, let's pull it up. Namaste. Welcome. It is time for you to go within. And I was like, who is this? Because
nice.
You. And the reason that so many people, I think, are failing to get to where they want to be is that they're living in a box of shoulds. If I'm a life coach, I should look like this. I should talk like this. I should have a website that looks like this, and this person's. And the bottom line is what gets you the clients, what gets you the audience, what gets you the readers is presenting yourself authentically, because they're looking for you. And if you don't present yourself authentically, they're going to miss you. They're not going to opt in. They're not going to sign up. They don't want a namaste. Her clientele does not want a namaste.
Right. Right. And she's not a namaste person, right?
So it feels every time she, is a coach, puts on her coaching hat, it's like putting on a costume. And that's not a way to live. That's not a way to work. That's not a way to create.
No, and I think I love that you're addressing also what's present tense, but one of the other things I want to call out in your process, or two things in your process that were, kind of incredibly helpful were one, you don't let anybody bring anything to the table, right? You're like, don't do any homework, don't send me anything, don't write anything. Like it is a real time
Yep.
personal, authentic experience. And again, I think that gets you out of hiding of, here are my colors, here are my fonts, here's the bio I wrote for myself 20 years ago, right? Like that was so beautiful. And in that, I also love how you ask questions looking very far forward. And it isn't in this moment or in 6 months or on a certain product or project. Again, that's where to me it almost feels as much like an umbrella as it does as the foundation, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like I'm creating the place where you can keep growing and moving around and you're still in the space and it fits and works for you, which is so beautiful.
Yeah. I love that.
So Michelle, if people want to learn more about, their a branding breakthrough or just working with you or whatever, what is the best way to connect with you or find you or discover you or learn more about you or follow all of the above?
All of the above, all of the above. So you guys can go to www.soulcampcreative.com, soulcampcreative.com to learn more about the agency. If you're wanting to chat, get on a quick call, email me directly, Michelle, Michelle, at soul.camp, not .com, .camp.
We checked on that. I was like, how did she get that .camp? She's so clever.
Soul.camp. And yeah, and I would be so happy to jam about some brand strategy and taglines and all that good stuff. So definitely get in touch and follow and find me. And I'd love to meet you and talk to you.
Awesome. I will put that all in comments and wherever else this ends up, and I'll share your socials as well. But Michelle, it is I always am smiling like I have sore cheeks
Oh,
when I get to talk to you because it's just such a joyous experience.
oh
So
my gosh.
thank you for sharing your wisdom and your expertise, and again, sort of shedding some light on what feels like it's scary, sometimes not fun experience. And Michelle makes it fun. I can't say it enough.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Take care. We will see you in the interwebs and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.